Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today we're going to talk through my experience with the book you picked for my February TBR. A little bit ago, I gave you guys the option to select a horror read for me in February, and it was to celebrate you guys, to celebrate 400 subscribers, and I'm gonna have to do another celebration of you guys soon because I am close to 500, so I'm excited about that. I will let you guys know that soon. But for the meantime, the winner of that video was Maeve Fly. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading through Maeve Fly and vlogging my experiences with it and my thoughts and tell you guys how I enjoy your pick. So let's get started. First off, I am going into this book a little bit blind. I know a few details about it, and I know that it's been recommended by a lot of people, including you guys on that last video. I had so many people comment that they had read that book and really enjoyed it, or I had a lot of people that say they really enjoyed the cover, and so they were excited about it for that. The runner-up in that video was Stolen Tongues, and it lost by 1 vote. So I will read that shortly and also tell you guys about that probably in a different month because it was so close, but Maeve Fly still won fair and square. And so I'm going to read this one first, and I am really excited about it. So I will get back to you guys as soon as I have an update. Hello, I'm back. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that because it's literally been seconds for you. So I have read 33% of the book, and I'm really enjoying it. And also, I don't think I've ever read a horror book like this before. It's more crass, I guess, than I was expecting. So I can give you guys a little bit of a synopsis now. We are following our main character whose name is Maeve Fly, and she is working at a theme park, but it's very clearly Disney. And she works in Disneyland is the one in LA, right? Or is it Disney World? I think it's Disneyland is the one in LA. And she is a very interesting character, and I think her dynamic with the reader is what I am not used to. She comes off as the type of person who would absolutely hate Disney and that would hate everything about LA. And she loves it in a really sinister way. I really don't want to give anything away. Maybe I'll do like a spoiler piece of this, but I'm going to keep this section non-spoilery, and I'll let you guys know whenever I get to spoilers, because I do think I kind of want to talk through some of the things that I found out. But I do think that relationship between her and this very amped up, excitable crowd, this fantastical place that she works, and kind of the peppiness, the contrast to how she feels about them, even though she enjoys, I guess maybe I would say that she is a people watcher. She appreciates the show. And there are some other things that I'll talk about in the spoiler section, but I don't know, I've really enjoyed that aspect, that component. One of my favorite lines, and it happened pretty early on in the book, and it doesn't give away anything about the plot or anything of the storyline, but she is interacting with someone at a bar with one of her friends, and the person is a director who kind of is high on himself and thinks that everyone should recognize him. And when she asks him what his name is, he kind of gets huffy, and he's like, "You don't know who I am? I'm a director." And her response to him is, "I'm sorry, I only watch porn." And it's the way that she delivers some of these lines, because that's not the only moment that's like that. Some of the things that she says just to make people uncomfortable, which may or may not be true for her character, I really enjoyed that component. As far as like the plot goes and what we're doing, I'm not sure yet. I know that there is this, her best friend's brother comes into town, and she is interacting with him a lot, and he tends to show up at places that you wouldn't think he would be unless he was following her, which she's never said that. That's just in my mind. Like, this random man is showing up in places around LA, and we're not concerned that he's like following you. And like I said, it's her best friend's brother, so maybe she just doesn't have that in mind. But they don't necessarily get along. And so you have that dynamic. You also have her talking about LA in general and how it is made to be like the movies. She's talked about like the restaurants. There was a, which I did not know about LA. I've never been to LA. There are places and architecture in a certain stream of years in LA where they were making buildings match whatever they encompassed. So like hamburger joints were made to look like hamburgers, and which just adds to the kind of cartoony movie feel of LA, which I really appreciated that setup for the book because of the fact that I've never gone. And I also think it adds to the cartoony feel of Disneyland as well, and the fantastical elements of that park in general. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. It's definitely darker than I was anticipating, which I guess I shouldn't say that. It's different than I was anticipating in a dark way because of the mix with Disney. It's a very weird contrast, but I'm enjoying it. The last thing I'll say about like within the non-spoilery section is that at 33%, so like right when I put down the book, there is something massive that happens that definitely changes the nature of our main character, or it solidifies something in my head about the main character. And I think it's going to be a wild ride from here. So, and I'm only 33% in, so we'll see. So now I would like to talk just briefly about spoilers. So if you have read Maeve Fly, come along with me. If you haven't, they're not gonna be mild spoilers. And so if you have not read this book, skip this next section. I'll put a timestamp up here so you guys know when to skip to, so you don't have to listen to the spoiler section. So the thing that just happened is she just freaking killed her grandmother's housekeeper. And I was kind of expecting her to be maybe a character that was going to be wooed into bad things because she does have this odd sense of life. But now we have this talk with her grandmother, like in the past, her grandmother talking about how she's essentially a wolf in sheep's clothing and that she has to hide herself. And it's not even, she doesn't even call herself a sheep. She calls herself a monkey, a trained monkey, that she has to keep all of these feelings inside. So she's essentially, in my head right now, she's a serial killer and has these really dark impulses and has been trained either by her grandmother or by life circumstances to hold those things in and only do them when people can't see. There was a moment in time when they were talking about her grandmother and the basement and the things that were in the basement, and she talked about the bodies, and then she was like, well, they're not really bodies anymore. And so did her grandmother also kill people? Because her grandmother talked about being a wolf as well and not being able to show the wolf to other people. My head is just spinning, and I don't know, I'm enjoying finding out more about her, and then also the fact that this Gideon character, the brother, has come into play and continues to pop up and seems to enjoy the oddity of Maeve, but I also don't know if he knows how dark she is and how dangerous she might be to him. And then there's like the weird sexual component that she has talked about with eggs. I don't know if I can view eggs in a different light now, but whatever. I don't know, like there are so many elements that I just wasn't expecting. The grandmother and the almost Dexter-like vibes, where Dexter's, I don't know if you guys have ever watched that movie, but Dexter's the serial killer, which is not a spoiler. And his dad teaches him how to be a good serial killer. I wonder if her grandmother did something like that and we're going to get like that storyline. I've really enjoyed the second timeline as far as her past goes. I also, which I guess I could have put this in the non-spoilery section, but that's okay. I liked the fact that she talked at the very beginning about the fact that she wasn't going to describe her backstory to you because she doesn't owe us anything as readers, and that she's tired of people expecting people to make bad decisions because of the things that have happened. Sometimes people are just like that. I really enjoyed that as well. So anyway, I will let you guys know when I get to 66% and update you again then. But so far, I'm having a great time. I am now at 70% of the way through Maeve Fly, and so I wanted to stop and update you guys. I will say that it's been a couple of days since I've seen you last, and those couple of days have not been great at work, and emotions have been high. Stuff has happened where my brain hasn't been able to focus, and so I apologize if the maybe from like 33% to 50-ish% of the book is a little hazy for me, but I'm going to try and tell you guys what I did enjoy about this section, and I'm still really enjoying it. So it didn't impact my enjoyment of the book, which is one of the reasons I kind of stopped. I read a little bit and then I stopped reading for those 2 days because I know I didn't want to, I stopped reading Maeve Fly for those 2 days because I didn't want to impact that storyline. So from the point that I left you guys, which I told you in the spoiler section, and this will not be spoilers, I told you guys in the spoiler section that there was a dramatic event that happened, and that's all I'll say right now. There was something that happened that is definitely going to cause more issues for Maeve moving on. And things get more and more unhinged within the story. She has her grandmother's situation where her grandmother is ill, and things change with that. She has a lot of changes going on, I guess I should say, because her and Kate's relationship is potentially going through a change as well. We know that in the very beginning, I don't know if I talked about this in the last clip, but I really enjoyed how Maeve kind of lined out, like she has a timeline in mind. Like she knows her 5-year plan, but instead of it being hers, it's a 5-year plan for everyone around her. So she talks about how her grandmother is sick. She knows her grandmother is going to pass eventually. And she has a timeline for, I know that it's going to take XYZ years for her to pass because I have looked it up online. And she kind of has done the same thing for Kate in her acting career. Kate wants to be an actress, and she came to LA, and she came to LA on a certain year. And they've known each other for a certain number of years. And so she thinks that she has this many years before Kate becomes like, kind of makes it big and hits her full potential. And she talks about like having that impact their relationship, and the fact that she can feel their relationship being stretched beyond its potential boundaries because of these ambitions that Kate has. And I really liked that discussion as far as relationships and how they grow and how people can grow together and they can also grow apart. I liked that part, but it does make me worry a little bit for Kate, because I know with Maeve being unhinged, I just have a feeling that change is not going to be something that Maeve is going to accept lightly, even if she's planning for it. And I think that's one of the reasons that she does have these timelines in her head, is so she can hopefully manage her emotions when these changes do happen. But I'm not hopeful. Gideon, the brothers' relationship with Maeve and how that has developed has been fun and also scary. I will say I did learn something about myself in this past 30%. I do not like reading torture on page. So I would say for those of you who might be triggered by that, maybe read some trigger warnings for this book, because there are some things that I would just be careful going in. And it wasn't, I will say that it took me a little bit by surprise, and I think that's on me. I did not read trigger warnings before going into this. I kind of went into it blind, and I think because I am new to the horror genre and I have never read anything quite like this, I just was not expecting it. I think if I had gone into it if I had done my research and I had looked up the things that were in this book, I think I would have been better prepared for this particular type of darkness to pop up in the book. But anyway, just so you guys are aware, that does happen. There is like I said, the relationship between Gideon and Maeve is very dark, and I do think that they feed into each other's they make each other worse, people, is what my assumption is going to be. And I do think that that will eventually come to a head as well. We shall see in what way. The Disneyland themes were a little less in the second 60%. Actually, there were a lot of things that were different in the second, whatever, the 30 to 70% that I'm telling you guys about. There were a lot of things that were different than the first. The grandmother's past present timelines don't happen anymore, and at least not as frequently. And so we're not getting as much information about the past. And there are some elements, I think we're learning more about Maeve, I guess, instead of more about her history and more about her grandmother, which is good. I've enjoyed it. It's just a change that I didn't expect. So as far as like my general thoughts for the non-spoiler section anyway, I've enjoyed the ride. I enjoy the unhingedness of the story. I am curious as to where Maeve is going to lead this story. I have no idea where we're headed. Couldn't tell. I think everything's going to blow up personally. Like, I think all of her relationships are going to fall apart, and I think she's going to crack because of it, and they're going to be mass chaos, mass destruction. That's what I'm envisioning happening. I have no idea if that's where we're actually going, but that's kind of what I'm picturing. So the first spoiler, and I didn't know whether or not to talk about this in the spoiler section or non-spoiler section, but I figured I don't want to ruin anybody's fun. The story about Jack and the devil, that I think it was Gideon that tells this story, is it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the trickster-ness of it. I enjoyed the comment that Gideon makes to her, or is it her? Yes, Gideon makes to Maeve, saying that she doesn't have to be Jack. And she kind of jokes to him, and she's like, well, does that make you the devil? And he says, well, yeah, I am the popular one and like the famous one, but you are the clever one. And with what they've done, so with their like sex scene, and by the way, that was the torture that I was talking about, was like them, I guess I shouldn't say the sex scene because there's multiple sex scenes, but where they end up bringing in another party, and I'm not going to repeat what happens, but Maeve kind of is trying to test her and Gideon's limits, and she introduces torture in this sex scene. That element with their relationship, I just see them constantly pushing and pushing and pushing each other's boundaries. So where I just got to, she cuts it off with Gideon because her grandmother is going downhill. She has decided to take on her grandmother's health instead of having the healthcare person come in, obviously, because she's murdered the healthcare person and she's decided not to get another one. The conversation, speaking of that she had with the police officer that was like, oh, you know, I'm just doing a favor for the hospice society, that because he knows somebody there. I have a feeling that's going to come back to bite her in the butt at some point in time whenever they can't find, was it Hilda? Was that her name? And anyway, that wasn't the purpose of what I was telling you. So the story about Jack and being a trickster, I just love that dynamic, and the fact that Gideon told Maeve that she doesn't have to be Jack. She doesn't have to damn herself, essentially. But then her response to that was, oh, so I'm just supposed to give up and allow for eternal torture. And so I think there's a discussion there about picking the worst or the best of the worst situations. I don't know where it's headed, but I'm intrigued. Oh, I'm at the scene where she quits, or she doesn't quit. She gets fired because of her having sex with Gideon on Disneyland's property, and Kate quits with her, which I was a little shocked by. I know that Kate kind of has a little bit of an out because of her actress position in the Better movie, but with the backstory on Kate that we got and this image of her realizing what Maeve is and still accepting it and still staying around, I guess I just imagined Kate not taking the opportunity to be away from Maeve, but not being so close with her that she would feel like she needs to stand in solidarity with her. So even though I think Maeve is freaking scary, I am glad that Kate kind of stood up with her and was like, no, this is ridiculous. And yeah, that they stuck it to Liz because Liz is the worst. And I loved like the kind of tantrum that they threw, the chocolate donut getting smeared on the dress, and then the dynamics between all of them and the hatred that they have for each other. But then the last part where Maeve is walking out of the room and all she can say is, I love this job. But once again, it's not because of what we think. I don't know. I'm having a good time. The only thing, like I said, I haven't enjoyed was that brief torture moment, and I was just not prepared for it being that dark. I am still intrigued on where we're going with this foundling doll, which I guess that's not super spoilery, but I'll still keep it in this section just in case people don't want to know. But like the newness of what's going on with it and who's the random person who's following her, because it definitely wasn't Liz. So yeah, I still don't know what the heck is happening, but I'm still along for the ride and I'm having fun. So I will see you guys when I finish the book and tell you guys what my final thoughts were. Okay, so I just finished Maeve Fly, and wow, this book is crazy. I'm gonna have to formulate words, especially for the non-spoiler part of this. Okay, so we'll start with certain things. So I enjoyed the commentary in this book on the sexualization and the nature of the quid pro quo in Hollywood and actresses and actors having to do things that aren't necessarily or wouldn't necessarily be something they would want to do if they didn't feel like they had to. And so I really enjoy when the horror genre digs into social commentary issues like this. And so I did enjoy that part of this. I also, within the last little piece of this book, we do visit the grandmother again, and in the past, I should say. And it wasn't as common as it was in the first 33%. There were a few also within the second 33%, but the last, I think we had a couple of snippets where we do visit the grandmother's past and Maeve's past. And I don't know why, I really liked those cutscenes as far as like being able to build on what we know, even if I do think it's kind of funny that we do get to do this throughout this book, because Maeve specifically makes a point at the very beginning of the book not wanting to explain herself to anybody because she is the way she is regardless of what has happened to her in the past. And so I do think it's funny that we do get these little clippings from the past from her. I think the relationship between her and Gideon is very interesting at the end of the book and throughout the 33%, but especially at the end. If you know, you know. And the end kind of felt a little bit like a fever dream, to be honest. Certain pieces of it, certain pieces not so much, but there were definitely pieces that I'm like, is this really happening, or am I in a dream? It kind of went off the rails for a little bit. And I had a lot of fun. The torture that I talked about in the second clip, I guess, does happen again or in another situation. And so just be aware, trigger warnings. That is something that I have learned about myself in this read. So I am grateful for this book for kind of highlighting that there are certain types of torture that I think I would rather stay away from. I don't know that it affected my enjoyment of the book. It affected how quickly I could read the book, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There were moments that I had to walk away and read something else. I also think that I maybe shouldn't have paired this with another horror read. I was reading The Suburban Hell at the same time as I was reading The Maeve Fly, and I was reading Suburban Hell with Nell and Leandra, which is completely different type of horror. It's more like cozy horror. But anyway, There were also two characters in the book that are both named Liz, and there were moments in time that I was like having like an inception moment or something, and I was like, what character am I talking about? Which book am I reading right now? Because some of the circumstances technically could have happened in both timeline or both stories. Anyway, that's not important. I really like being in Maeve's perspective throughout this book. And in the end, you get to see her break a little. And that is the part that I think is a little bit fever dreamy. For whatever reason, I like that in books. I like to have that moment in time where I'm on a roller coaster and I don't know what's happening and I don't know what's real and what's not real. I think that that's a lot of fun. And so I did like that about this book. One more thing, just briefly, because I don't think I talked about this in the second clip. There is a continuing through line about wolves and the monkey and kind of caging your inner self that I found really intriguing throughout the entire story. And I believe I talked about this in the very first clip. So she talks about the fact that her grandmother tells her that she's a wolf and that she can't let anyone else see her true self because they wouldn't understand her. And that through line, I really enjoyed. Along with, there was another through line from the beginning of the story, which is the foundling doll. I think I talked about that at the very beginning. If not, she finds a doll on the corner or on the side of the road as she's walking to a bar, the very, very beginning of the book. And it kind of throws her a little bit off kilter. And that, I'm not going to go into great details, but that little detail also comes into play several times throughout the story. So I really enjoyed how the author played with moments in time, I guess, throughout the book. I liked that. So this is not a 5-star for me, but it is some range of 4. I'm not exactly sure what. I will put, because editing me will know by the time I edit this video and put it up, I will put right here what I ended up reading this. I had a lot of fun. So thank you guys for actually choosing this book for me. I learned a lot about myself, and I'm glad that I tried this type of horror read. So with that said, I'm going to start talking about spoilers, specifically the ending. So if you have not read this book and you are interested in reading this book and you don't want any type of spoilers, now is the time to say goodbye to me. Thank you so much for watching, but I'm going to start talking about the end because I just have to get it out. So, she freaking kills Gideon? When this happened, I literally had a moment in time where I'm like, I'm sad. Should I be sad? And like the fact that the 3 words on the doll, the foundling doll that she finds are, I see you. I know I shouldn't be sad. I should be grateful that at least one of them got killed and isn't in the world anymore, but I'm not. I feel bad that she didn't listen to him and that she was listening to like her inner monologue and didn't actually get to live with someone, you know, someone that could have kind of replaced her grandmother's like relationship with her. Not relationship, that's not the right word, but I could have replaced that spot that, you know, she has someone that doesn't only accept her like she has Kate, but also understands what she's doing and is intrigued by what she's doing, which is terrifying, but I'm sad. Also, I do wish that we would have gotten to know more of Gideon's side of things, and maybe the author, I think this is a standalone, I don't think that this will be a series by any means, but if the author wrote the same book just from Gideon's perspective, I would eat that up. I want to know why. I want to know what he was thinking with the foundling dolls. I want to know, I want to see inside his brain as well. I am a little shocked that Kate did not end up in the mix of things, like as far as murdering. I really did think that Maeve was going to go off the hinges and murder Kate, and that did not happen. And I found myself being a little proud of her for, one, kind of going after Derek, or not kind of, going after Derek. Although this was part of that in the band. If you guys can talk to me about the band that she murdered and why she murdered them, I'm still a little confused about this. That was a lot. And then she goes after Derek, and the entire time she's like, I'm just going to poke his eyeball out, or I'm just going to, I can't remember what else she does, but there are some other things and she's like, but I can't do this because I want it to work out for Kate. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to be the same after this. So you might have messed it up for Kate anyway. Which I know, obviously, she's unhinged at this point in time, and so she's not thinking rationally, but that was what was going through my head. But I also am very surprised at her rationality when Kate goes off on her and is like, I want you out of my life. But once again, we revisit that moment where she was like, I knew this was going to happen. I knew she was going to leave me. It is what it is. And this mix of rationality with crazy unhinged things that she does is just trippy. I don't know. The fact that she thinks that she's her grandmother at the end of the book as she's going on her killing escapades. The ears, which I guess, I can't remember if that happened during the second clip or not, but when she takes Andre's ears off and puts them on the Mickey ears. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this book was wild. I am still confused. I want to know more about her grandmother too, and the fact that the dead grandpa in the cellar is still there, and all these bodies. I want more. I want more of this story. I want to know more. So I did really enjoy it. Thank you guys once again for recommending this or voting for this for me. I think I'm going to be searching out books that are similar, maybe a little bit tamer in the torture category for me, but I did really enjoy the overall storyline. So with that, in the comments, let me know if you guys have read Maeve Fly, if you enjoyed it, if you have other horror recommendations for me. I would love to add to my TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.